Today we have Matt Schaubroeck, the CEO of ioAirFlow. I'm Bill, the company's expert. Welcome to the live stream, first live stream. This is called Don't Start a Business Until You Watch This. So nice, sensational title there. Hopefully everything is working. So, hey, Matt, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's been a very, very nerve-wracking experience the last couple of days. I managed to brick my computer late Friday. We spoke on Friday to set this up, and then late Friday I bricked my computer, meaning that completely crashed. Tried to do an image recovery, didn't work. So I had to reinstall the operating system and all my accounts and apps and software and everything. So as if this wasn't technically challenging enough, I had that on top of it. So that's kind of, that set the pretext. So great. So thanks for joining me here. So, okay, ioAirFlow. It's great that I have you on the show there. You and I have been speaking for a few years about this, and you're leading this company. You're leading it to success, and the theme, of course, is to don't start a business until you watch this. And a great topic I thought would be validation. And I'd like to ask you about your company and how you validated it and how you changed it. So I'll start off with one question and basically ask, is the company you're running now, is this what you envisioned when you first got into this and started it several years ago?
Yeah, not at all. And I think part of that is even the same story as with your computer this weekend. If it can go wrong, it will. And Bill, you and I have been working for about 3 years now, as far back as I can remember, and talking about ioAirFlow. Our company started about 3.5 years ago, maybe a little bit further back, in a classroom. We had a technology commercialization course, and the idea was to take something and see if it worked, see if there was a fit for it in the market somewhere. And that was the assignment. So we went off and tried to do something about building automation, didn't really have any ideas flushed out at that point, and had some positive feedback. So we thought, okay, I was myself and one other guy at the time, and we thought, okay, well, let's see where we go with this. So we did some research for a couple of months and thought, we might have something here in building automation. So the idea of taking up buildings' mechanical systems and putting a new logic function on top of it. We worked on that for about a year before realizing that was almost impossible to build.
So it evolved quite a bit as you were going through this.
It did. We went from a full hardware company to a full software company, and now we're bringing some hardware back in. It's been a journey, and part of that has just been listening. So what had happened, we were trying to get some validation with the building automation idea. Was people kept coming back to us and saying, well, it's all well and good, sure, this could solve something, but what we really need to understand is what is actually not working in a building, and there's no real solution for that. So after a while, we started to realize that the path that we had been on wasn't going to be working as effectively as we had hoped, and the other guy who was with me, he decided to go his own way, and that this just wasn't the project for him anymore. So I took a close look and thought, well, I have two choices. I can shut it down and start something fresh, or I can go down this other avenue that people were telling us it's something they want to see. So I took about 6 months and almost started from scratch a little bit with a lot of the development work, but a better understanding of the market. And that turned into where the company is today.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, the bit about the partner. And I've seen that working as a startup mentor in my own experiences too, where you get people that sort of go in together, right? And but then one thing leads to another. You discover that people have different visions for what they want, and that creates problems down the road. And something I've advocated is to think long and hard about who you want to partner with, because it can be complicated. It can be very messy, and it can lead to a lot of inner turmoil that really distracts you from the business fundamentals.
Mm-hmm. It can make for a difficult journey, and when two people start something, it's important to think about whether you're going to be splitting it 50-50, 51-49, and if so, who has the 51 percentage-wise, because you're going to come into some problems. It's a relationship. It's in a lot of ways, it's a marriage because there's a legal binding aspect to it. And don't get married to someone you don't know very well and someone you can't work with. It's no different in entrepreneurship. In my case, it worked fine for the most part. I think that we both had a similar vision, but the other part of it too is entrepreneurship is tough and it's not for everyone, and you may not figure that out until you're neck deep in it, and at which point then you might realize that this is not necessarily the thing for me, and that's fair. That's a very difficult thing to come to terms with, I think. Not having the gumption, maybe is not the right word, but there's a little bit of insanity to being a founder that you need to have.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that's something I've encountered quite a bit, where you get you basically get two types of people that want to be entrepreneurs. One is the sort of salesman type, and then the other one is what I call operations type. And a lot of people that go into it from the operations side, they think, they're more into the technical details of whatever it is that they're doing. So they think, okay, I have a new way of doing something, or I have a new product, or I have the capability of doing something. I can do this. And then they start and they launch, and they're confronted with this problem of having to make sales or bring in money at some point. Actually, it's more than bringing in money. It literally is making sales, because you can get money from funding, you can get money from investors and all this, but at some point, it is a business problem. You have to get customers, you have to get money coming in, and a lot of people I find are strangely unprepared for that particular problem. They see it more as a technical challenge and not as a business challenge. And so that's where sort of validation, I guess, comes into the equation here. And you spoke a little bit about a moment ago, like how your idea evolved as you were going, on your journey. At what point, or how did validation come into that, and getting feedback from customers and things?
Was a whole lot to unpack there, Bill. So for me, it was when we pivoted and realized that there was more benefits to working in the efficiency market than the automation market for us. So just to I guess explain a little bit further, what we do now is software to help diagnose where there's energy efficiency lacking in commercial buildings. So using wireless sensors and a filtering algorithm to recognize what's not functioning in a building and how you can fix it. We moved into that efficiency space, and this is not necessarily my area of expertise. And I have people on my team who are much smarter than me in this particular field, but I needed to learn from the experts on that. So validation for me was a learning experience first and foremost, because I am the salesperson. I understand at a high level that I can inspire and get people behind me and rah and then get it all happening. But where I need help and where a partnership is valuable for me personally as a founder is having someone else do that reality check and say, there's more that needs to happen here, and you're not considering this, or you haven't thought of that. And that's where the validation for me is helpful. But then on the other side, people who are on that operational side, that validation is important to get that confidence. So I think with engineers or anyone who's working in STEM projects, right, they're looking for 100% perfection. And I think in entrepreneurship, 100%, if you try to get 100%, you almost will never make it. And we have to be comfortable with going into the market and trying to sell something it's no hard or fast rule, but maybe something that's at 80% and then fix it as you go. As long as it works at some fundamental level and you can go and test it in the market and see if people are willing to pay for it, sometimes you have to take that risk. So there's a balance on both sides there that's important. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
I see someone saying in the chat there, are there more solo entrepreneurs or pairs/teams? Is one more typically successful than the other? I'd say it's about 50-50. I mean, you see a lot of people going in with partners, but you see people coming in solo. And I guess in your particular case, you came in as a partner and then ended up solo. Do you want to speak to that? Yeah,
I mean, I think it depends on the fields, and I think it depends on the level of complexity. But certainly for me, yeah, started a partnership, went solo, and now I'm back to having partners, and couldn't be happier about it. I found people that we fit really well together, and we complement each other, and that was the most important thing for me. Where could I have done this on my own to take it to the point where it was today? Maybe, but it would have taken me another 9 months. So there's a risk and reward with partnership, and I think there's a lot you can do if you have your own vision and you know where you want to go. It's a fair risk to take.
Yeah, it's hard to give sort of blanket advice for partners. I mean, it depends on the details. It depends on, who the partner is and how well they mesh. And I guess to sum up for that, it would be make sure that this is a person or these are people that you're going to be put through the ringer with. It's going to be stressful. You're going to have differences of opinion. When you encounter a problem, everybody's going to have a different opinion on how to solve it. How are you going to resolve those type of situations? And are you able to compromise? Are you able to say, look, I'll let you have this one if you give me the next one, that kind of thing? Do you feel that's kind of the way through that, the way to work with people? It's great when times are tough, or great when times are good, but when times are tough, what have you found that really works through it and keeps the relationship there?
You need to set up the process for disagreement before you have a disagreement, so that way you have something objective to fall back on. That has saved my skin more times than I can count. But really, I think it comes down to personality. You need to be able to work with someone who some days there are going to be bad days and you'll get into a yelling match. So in that case, just like in any relationship, you need to do two things: not make it personal and don't carry that grudge with you. Because a lot of times you'll get huge value out of those when tensions are high and people are aggravated. You're going to get the truth. You're going to get the honest truth. And there's extreme value in those moments, but you have to make sure that there's not going to be a negative lasting impact.
Yeah, that totally is the truth. I mean, the other element of it, I think, is, and what I've seen is where people, if you start a company solo and you're in sort of the validation or the ramp up stage, and some people want to bring a person in. But the issue from my perspective is that person, they haven't really demonstrated the same level of commitment as the founder, right? So what the founder wants to do is hire them as an employee, because their absolute commitment to the company hasn't really been shown yet. Like they might be useful, but would this be their baby? Would this be their thing that, they do even if they don't get paid? Like that would be a question mark. So in situations like that, you want to make sure that the other person is just as committed. So in addition to the personality and the disagreement, process and all that, you need to make sure that commitment is there. And, that's kind of that's something where I think a lot of people, it's very hard to be objective about. And a lot of people have their blinders on. They kind of see what they want to believe. I don't know what your take on that is.
Well, and I think the thing with blinders too, if you're going in solo, is you're, I think, more likely to just follow your own vision and not necessarily be as receptive to other ideas. With a partnership, you have to have compromise, and I do think there's a lot of value in that. There's circumstances where being a solo entrepreneur makes sense. In my case, it doesn't, because this is not my field of expertise. I'm the sales guy, I'm the business guy, but technical knowledge that I don't have. So I need that to complement my skill set.
Yeah.
Blinders, if for validation, can have a really negative impact, right? If you're not used to getting feedback and absorbing it and using that to tweak and pivot your business model, when it's time to go and talk to potential customers and you're getting that feedback and choose not to incorporate it, or you're ignoring some things that may have long-term positive benefit for you because you have your vision and you know best. That I've seen that in companies before, and you need to be careful about that.
And that's always a tough one. I mean, you go into entrepreneurship to do it your way. That's the reason traditionally why people would become entrepreneurs, because you don't want to get a 9-to-5 job. You don't want to live under somebody's thumb and be an employee. You want to you feel confident enough that you can take charge, you can make the decisions and live with them basically. And if you're a partner with somebody else, there are going to be times when people disagree, and then you have to choose between, okay, am I just going to, plow ahead and be at the helm and not work with people that disagree with me, or am I going to trust somebody else's opinion over my own, which is quite hard for regular human beings to do, to really, like when the stakes are high, when your future is at stake. If you think the answer is no, but your partner thinks the answer is yes, are you going to say, okay, let's go with yes, right? And then you face the question of, well, if it turns out to fail, is there going to be blame? Are you going to resent the other person because you're thinking, I never should have trusted you? Like all these type of situations come up. So if you're considering going in as a partner, I guess these are the issues you really have to think through. Because once you're dealing with shares and ownership and all that, and lawyers, and it can be very, very messy, and it would be good to front load all that decision making at the beginning, I guess.
Yes, and here's my big first takeaway then for the chat is, if you are getting into the messiness of shares and lawyers, make sure to set up a shareholder agreement as quickly as possible. So this process, if it ever does get ugly, you have something to fall back on. That is a process that everyone has agreed to already. Yes,
great advice, and I think we've both had experiences in that department. So no, that's a really good takeaway. No, that's great. So the other thing that you're doing with ioAirFlow is that obviously ioAirFlow is part of the whole green tech kind of movement, right? And for those that are just tuning in, green tech, if you've never heard of it, that's just basically environmentally friendly technology. So anything that helps you save money on energy costs or recycling or anything like that is green tech, and it's very, very trendy. Yeah, it's a trend. It's certainly not a fad. It's been on the upswing for the last 20 years, certainly. And now you chose a company that works within that. And as a result, there's more resources and there's more attention given to that. Did you find that was a huge bonus, happening to do something in a sort of trendy, high visibility area, or was it kind of a minor detail?
Well, it's not why we picked it. I am passionate about the environment, which is one of the reasons that my company's idea appealed to me. Certainly, picking your industry, you have to be strategic about it. If I was starting something to do with oil right now, I would not be feeling as good as I would be if I was working for green tech. But green tech, there's a lot of appeal right now if you're trying to do something that's a little heavier on the research and development side, because there is a lot of grant money available. Just to be totally pragmatic about it, you're going to be building something that you're going to be investing a lot of money in and taking out some debt and bootstrapping and trying to raise a little bit of money where you can before you have something that's ready to go to market. In a lot of cases, grant money goes a long way towards that, and so there's a lot available in Canada towards innovative green tech or clean tech solutions. So it certainly helps. It's allowed us to increase our capacity more than what it would have otherwise without those grants. So it's good, but certainly not the only industry that's trendy right now. There's lots of opportunities out there for entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah, there's different things. But what about, there's also, there's the grant side, which is great. There's also, as part of that high visibility, there's also there's more events and trade shows and media dedicated to it. That I imagine also plays a significant impact too.
Absolutely. With clean tech and the environment, obviously climate change is top of mind for a lot of people right now, and they're looking for more solutions and actively looking at a global scale. So we've been fortunate to be able to go across Canada a little bit, somewhat into the US and as far as Germany to talk about our ideas and the impacts that they can have on the global environment, because inefficient buildings is a global problem. It's not just limited to one country. It's not just limited to one space or one market. Every single country in the world has this issue. So it gives us a platform to go and speak at a broader level, which is always thrilling.
Yeah, it does. It does have an effect. It makes it a little bit more accessible to people, I imagine. The other thing, green tech, another kind of thing is recycling, and I always found recycling an absolutely just amazing business model, because normally, the inputs for your business, like your raw materials, you'd be paying to buy those, right? But in recycling type companies or recycling type things, someone is paying you to take it away. So you're making money twice. Somebody pays you to take it away. And I mean, even if you just do nothing with it, you're making money. But then if it's raw material and you turn it into another product or another thing that you sell, you make money twice. So you have two revenue streams right off the hop. So an incredible business model, and that's part of the clean tech thing too. So that's really, really interesting. So at some point you had to go from an idea, like a sort of theory of what people would want and how it would work, to testing it, to being able to validate the idea, or to go directly to making sales. What helped you in that journey? What was that journey for you?
Well, I mean, the first year and a half, we were focused on a different vision. And then after my last partner left, I had to take some time and reassess and learn a few things. Mm-hmm. For me, taking the leap, I was probably more conservative than I could have been. I probably could have jumped into my company full-time a few months sooner. But it's a scary thing to do. I had a job that had health benefits and steady income, and there's a lot to be said for that. But I knew that I wanted to eventually make the leap when I could promise to myself that there was something here that I could make it go with. So I took a little time to make sure that opportunity existed.
Yeah, so because at some point, you're going to be leaving the comfort of like a 9-to-5 job, a regular career, and your startup venture is going to go from sort of a hobby or it's going to side hustle to the main thing, right? And it's a very scary move. What was it that convinced you that the time was right? What did you have to see to believe that, okay, this is a real thing, that I can do this now and the time is now?
I really had to convince myself. So for the few months leading up to me quitting my day job and going in full time, I had been hearing through validation with customers and people in the ecosystem that this is a great idea. Like, we're excited about this. We want to see this in action. And I had heard that over and over and over. And psychologically, it's one thing just to hear it, but then to believe it and take that leap. I just really had to psych myself up, essentially. But once. What really ended up happening for us was I realized that I was holding the company back by not putting the time that needed to be put into it. Being a founder is 60, 70 hours a week. It's a pretty thankless job. And if you're trying to do full-time work on top of that, you are giving up sleep and sanity.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. Yep.
Yeah. So, you can do one of three things. You can burn out completely. You can focus too much in your day job at the detriment to your startup, or you can focus too much in your startup and then get fired from your day job.
That's a pretty pragmatic way of looking at it, yeah. But it's true.
Yeah. So I decided that this was the time, and there was enough opportunities to have at least 3 or 4 months of salary in the bank. Without anything else changing, so we jumped at it, and so far I have very few regrets, very few. But it takes it to a whole other level, right? When it's time to take the leap, I think you need to commit and just plug your nose and jump, because you then have the capacity, both mentally and time wise, to go and really see where you can take this thing. Yeah.
So you had people telling you that your idea was a good idea, right? Yeah. So presumably that came from more than just one source. That was like a repeat thing you kept hearing over and over again from multiple independent sources. Is that how that worked?
Exactly. Yeah. I've learned to be very receptive to validation and feedback, especially over the last year and a half. And So I'm always asking people, what do you think about this? Does this make sense? Would you prefer it was done that way? And did a lot of pivoting and incorporating that feedback into different aspects of the business. And then finally got to a point where there was less and less feedback and more just general acceptance that, yes, this was a good thing to do. And I think once you get to that point, that the refrain is coming through pretty commonly, that you have something that people will want, that's as good a sign as you're ever going to get, because there's no guarantees in life.
Yeah. Well, my concern, and this is partly based on my experience and also observing others, was that, when you ask people, like, what do you think of this idea? A lot of people are going to say, oh yeah, it's a great idea. Just noise, basically. I mean, they might like it, but it's a far cry from, would I buy this, especially if it's something that's, thousands of dollars. It's like a big commitment. My concern would be that might be just lip service, and you would need to demonstrate it more before you take major personal risks to quit a career or something to do your startup. How did you find, was there something specific that, it's kind of an arrow in the brain that said, like, this is real. This is not just lip service. This is we really have something here, and there's real potential. Was there a moment like that for you?
There was, yeah. It was about 5 months ago where my new partner, she said, Matt, I don't know what other sign you're waiting for. You keep hearing this, that it's good. You keep hearing it's working, but you also keep hearing that you need more time and capacity to work on this. You're not going to have any other sign. Like, it's time, let's go. And that, to go back to the conversation about partnerships, that was my aha moment, right? Where, because for her, it was also that she was trusting me enough to come in on this thing, and we're pooling our money, and we're taking a significant risk in doing this. And she's putting her career on hold as much as mine. And she was saying, okay, let's go, take the plunge. That meant a lot to me. And we'll hopefully that kind of commitment will take us through to the end.
Yeah, that's great. No, it's good to get that, and it's good when you have somebody else, a partner, that kind of can give you perspective on that. So you're not just in it alone, because it's very hard to be objective about these things. I find, and I see in others a lot. No, that's really awesome. Okay, so another kind of part of this was, the whole question of product market fit, right? And this is a challenge for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people, they may have a great technical solution. It may, when you look at technical specifications, it may be doing some good. It might be logical that people would buy it or sign up for it. It does provide benefit. The benefit's been demonstrated, but how do you know that, okay, the business question is correct? How do you know that this product or this solution is right for the customers that I'm talking to and I'm trying to target? What are your thoughts on that? What has helped you in ioAirFlow?
Well, the first thing we had to do was actually understand with specificity who our customer is. It's one thing just to say buildings or commercial buildings, but we had to really break it down and get into a demographic that was our likeliest customer, and then go out and talk to them over and over and over again, do research on buildings, trends, operational issues that's happening in those buildings right now. So primary, secondary interviews, as much as we could, and then understand not only what problems they're facing, but what the potential solutions to those problems are other than what we can offer. So understand where your advantage is, where you are stronger than your competitors, and where you're weaker than your competitors. I think a lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of saying we don't have any competition, or that ours is absolutely the best and here's why. I think you set yourself up for some pretty rude awakenings if you go in with that perspective. You have to assume you're the best, or at least up there to bump elbows with the big guys, or else you wouldn't be doing it. With the best option, but you do need to understand that it is a competitive marketplace, and that the odds are pretty good that you haven't discovered something entirely new and revolutionary. And if you have, kudos. But for the most part, you will have competitors, and you need to understand your strengths and weaknesses relative to them. So we had to go through that whole process, and then the final question was, to your point earlier, sure, people think that this is a good idea, but are they willing to spend money on it? And we had to go deep and have some pretty serious relationships and conversations with potential clients and folks who work in the industry. And we had to trust them and say, if we were to offer this, would you pay for it? And we had to be that direct in a couple of circumstances. And there was enough yeses there that we decided to take the risk. And it is a risk. I mean, there's no guarantees. We didn't get anything in writing. But we were confident that with the work we've done and the relationships that we've built, that we can translate that into sales.
Yeah. So you're dealing with you mentioned one first customer, like the big first customer. Were you having to deal with like multiple customers at the same time? Like you were getting, like is one customer willing to get them to be willing to jump in and try a smaller company, a new company? The fact that you were also working with other customers, was that like a major thing in convincing your primary customer or potential customer that they should do business with you? Was that a big part of it?
Yes. I mean, it helps because no one wants to be first in.
It's a catch-22.
Yeah, you're taking on a lot of risk at that point. So it is important, I found, to say that you're working with other people, you have other tests lined up, you have other customers who are interested. But of course, with our first few building tests, we gave them away for free. We needed to build up a bit of that feedback loop. It was good for streamlining our internal processes. We were lucky that we had the capital to allow ourselves to do that, but it let us go in and understand how the customer thinks.
That's a use for the grant money. If there's grant money out there, that's a good use. As opposed to developing your product, it would be to help fund the first couple of free samples, shall we say, where you develop relationships with customers. Is that? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that is invaluable. But what that doesn't do in that case is helps you figure out your price point, and even more fundamentally, the question: will someone actually pay good money for this? So that's the bigger question. People will have a lot of leniency to get something done for free, but when it comes down to budget and having to make some decisions about dollars, that's a very different conversation. So, but going in and having the capacity to say, yes, I've worked with some of your colleagues in this industry and they've been happy with the report that we've been able to prepare for them, that goes a long way.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's kind of the textbook kind of thing, is you have to get to know your customers. You have to get to know your potential customers very, very early on, even when you're planning a design of your offering, basically, your product or service. Now, is there more than that you found in your particular journey? Because, for example, this idea of breaking into an industry from the outside as opposed to the inside, it's a lot harder to break into an industry from the outside when you don't have any, like a partner or anybody in your little group, your organization, that is a veteran of the industry in which you're working. I find that people who are breaking in from the inside, they have a much better track record of success. They know what they're doing. They have the expertise. They have the connections within the industry, and they have the credibility to be able to go in and be taken seriously. And, they understand exactly what people are looking for, and they understand exactly what people need to hear. Do you feel that in ioAirFlow and in the course of your journey, you were on the outside or on the inside, and what do you think about that necessity for having insider expertise in your camp?
Well, I'll put it to you this way, Bill. We're a software company, and I have no software experience. We're an environmental company, and I have no formal environmental training or education. We run big data analytics, and I don't even know how to work a database. What I have, I'm going back to this personality of entrepreneurs, is I have grit. I'm a believer and a vision guy, and I have the tenacity or insanity, depending on what side of the coin that you want to look at, to try and realize that vision. And by any means necessary, I will try and get that done. And that's my strength. That's why the company's still here 3.5 years later through different iterations. But I couldn't do that fully as an outsider. I could build relationships and talk to people. and that helped. But it was a multi-year commitment to have people, I think, understand that I could know what I was talking about. And even today, I mean, I don't pretend to know everything. I defer all the time to folks on my team who know much more than me in the industry. So for me, again, that partnership incorporation style is really important because I need that for me. Will I ever be seen as an insider in these industries? Probably not, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. What I'm selling to them is then an outsider perspective. So when I go in and talk to insiders, I say, look, you've been doing things the same way for a long time, and it's worked reasonably well for you. I've considered things in a different way, and I'd like to show you why I think that my solution can bring you more value than the status quo. So being an outsider there helps.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I can change their perspective because I haven't been trained the same way that they have.
So in your case, you don't come from the industry. You're a self-proclaimed outsider from it, but you still manage to get a foothold and build because one of the things you have is you have a team with people who are insiders, so you can sort of wrangle them and coordinate them and be able to direct them, I suppose, in the right direction. Is that the key to success? It's to have insiders and then have a outside perspective?
Yeah, I mean, you do need that perspective, absolutely. And whether they're on your team or they're just advisors or people you can go to with questions, I think that it is important to have that, especially if you are not an insider per se. I think there's tremendous value in coming in fresh, I suppose, is one way of saying it. So, if you haven't been working in that space for 20 years, maybe it gives you a perspective that can add some different value. For me, though, I think the biggest value there is having someone who can go in and is willing to learn. So I didn't have any of these skills going in. And I remember last summer, I was in a meeting with one of my partners and rattling off to a team. And I was like, oh, everyone here understands how algorithm works, right? And, and I was listing everything out. And then she turned to me after and she was like, how do you know how to do that?
Well, you pick these things up, right?
Right. And it's years and years of learning something new and being open to learning new talents and skills and perspectives. And if you can do that, then I think it will help establish some credibility.
Yeah. If you're gonna be an entrepreneur, you have to be open to learning everything, basically. Things that you perhaps never had an interest in before. You're gonna have to be open-minded to learning that. I see someone in the chat says it's actually the same person as before. It says, is there anything specific I guess you would have done or ensured before you went full-time on your own business, or something specific other than check off before they give their 2 weeks notice? What do you say to that? Can you see these? I can see them in the side here. It's nice that they pop up.
I think it's different for everyone, but one thing someone told me years ago, and I stand by, is don't jump unless there's a boat. So I think a lot of people will get excited about an idea and say, okay, this is it, I'm going to go do it. And then there's all kinds of things they hadn't considered yet. So don't let the excitement get the better of you. Make sure you're making a rational choice. But everyone's risk profile is different. Some people will be willing to jump in right away. Some people will want money in the bank first before they take the plunge. I think that's a very personal choice. I'm very lucky. I don't have a mortgage or kids or anything, so I'm able to take some big risks. And so I chose to go, later than perhaps I could have, but still relatively early into the life of the company. That's not necessarily a choice available to everyone. So the one thing you should ask yourself is, if this goes badly, am I able to absorb this? Right? Plan for the worst, and then just hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, something that you're absolutely right. I mean, everybody has their own level of risk they're willing to take, and based on their situation and their preference. Something that I've always advocated, and I've helped several of my clients with, was that basically I've always said, like, look, the ultimate validation is to have money coming in, and if you can achieve that, that will signal that you're onto something. Before that stage, it's quite risky. It's you might have people saying nice things about it, but depending on the industry that you're in, that may not be enough. If you're selling something very cheap, you're going to consumers, something maybe just a lot of multiple people saying it's a great idea and they like it, that would probably be a good validation. Things that are a bit, more industrial, more business to business type stuff, you may need a bit more than that, in my opinion. Obviously you didn't need that. You just went in and you made a success of it. So, I mean, that's oh, by the way, that's a sign of good leadership, good decision-making. You predict something and it turns out to be true. So way to go for that. But, no, I advocate usually that you get the money. Money is ultimate validation. That proves beyond doubt that there's a market for it. It's just a matter then of exploring the market, seeing, how big it actually is, and if you can reach these people and communicate your value to them. Those are the only questions that then need to be answered. So that's kind of what I've always said. So product market fit. When you started ioAirFlow, was there an existing market for your solution?
So in its current iteration, there is a market. What we're doing is digitizing a process that exists to a large degree. So we're essentially making it more efficient. But it was an industry that, to be honest, when I started down this journey, I didn't realize existed. So had to learn a fair amount about that. And then because we want to be a B2B company and have those they're called energy solutions companies or energy auditors, we want them to be our customers, and then they would go and do the tests. We had to learn how they work, what their pain points were, and what the product market fit was. So the distinction for us is we were going after buildings directly for a long time, thinking we'll go do tests in buildings, realized that was going to work, for local markets. But if we really wanted to have a significant impact as a software company, that we needed to license quickly and aggressively across potentially as far as the globe. And so that means we needed to change our focus and now distinguish between customers and users. So now our focus for the past few months has been understanding what makes those energy solutions companies tick, and the product market fit now has to fit very specifically in those boundaries instead. And so a lot of conversations there. Again, that validation was important because it was a new industry to me and to a lot of our team. And so the more work we did in building up those relationships, it helped get some feedback that we could then go and incorporate our existing solution into.
How did you pick the idea? Like you said earlier that you were interested in environmental issues and stuff like that. So I got that. But beyond that sort of general feeling, how did you come up with the specific idea for like the offering that you do, like that exact thing that you offer?
So it comes down to I'm the kind of guy, when I see something that I don't understand why it doesn't make sense, I just get annoyed. And over and over again, people were
Is it mildly annoyed or extremely annoyed?
Visibly on my face, quite annoyed.
Okay, so, that would be extremely annoyed.
And we kept going into these meetings, and people would talk about these manual processes for measuring certain aspects in buildings. So the best example there is air balancing, which you've probably never heard of, but it's a way to standardize air pressure across buildings. And what you have to do right now, and now I'm just going to get frustrated thinking about it, is you have to take this canvas tank and measure the air pressure off every single exhaust point in the building, measure it over time, and then go and tweak the damper, and then go and do the other one, and then make sure that this level is over here, and this level is working here, and that level is working. By the time you fix the third one, you have to go back into the first one again, and then by the time you leave the building, it's already out of whack already. And and that was not the only example of the manual process in building efficiency work that just frankly is archaic and medieval. By the time
just seeing that problem, that was enough to say there's got to be a better way, and then you kind of went from there.
I can't believe there's not a better answer out there. And I was lucky enough when we were dealing with automation that I learned a lot about wireless sensor tech and how to run tests inside buildings to measure them more effectively. And I thought, well, why don't we just do that? And that's exactly
that makes sense. I mean, the thing that I'd be worried about in that type of situation, because we all see this every day. You see stuff going on, you're like, that's silly. Why are they doing that? Why don't they do it this other way? Wouldn't that make more sense? And as part of a validation for it, I always ask the counter question, which is, well, it seems like it would make more sense to do option B instead of what they're doing now, option A, but there must be something I'm missing that I don't realize that makes option B look pretty bad, actually. Like, there's got to be something I'm missing why they don't do it. And then that would be the trigger to sort of investigate and go talk to the players in the, in that particular situation and find out what the deal is. Did you encounter that? Like, once you launch, you jump in and you say, okay, let's do this. What was that process for you like of kind of pushing against the existing situation?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, Bill. There's paths that you'll go down, and once you have the industry perspective or the status quo perspective, you'll realize that maybe this outsider's point of view is not the right one, and maybe there's a reason things are the way they are. So I've gone down false paths quite a few times in figuring out our product offering. So what you really have to do is go off and explore them all earnestly, and go and ask all the right questions, and that network that you build up in your validation conversations. As long as you have people who are willing to give you honest feedback, you can go to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? Why does this work the way it does? Why aren't people doing it that way? And if they don't have an answer, or if the answer, you think you can still do better at the end of the day, that's a good sign. But again, going down to the idea of blinders, right? You can't just go assuming that there's always a better way. Sometimes, even though it is archaic, these systems exist for a reason, and you just need to you have to be nimble enough to find where you can have an influence and where you can't, and I also realize that you can't change the world on your own. So focus on what you can change first, and then expand out from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge that entrepreneurs have, especially innovative entrepreneurs that are doing something new and different, is that you're very small. You could be like a one-person company. You don't have a lot of clout. You don't have a lot of resources. You don't have a lot of influence. So if you're trying to push back against a status quo, a situation where people are doing something kind of stupid that, there's much better ways, and you're trying to change their mind, that's always going to be a key challenge is, how do you change people's minds when you have or how do you educate them or, do anything like that, get awareness for an alternate way of doing something, when you're just a small fry, you don't have a lot of resources. What have you found that's helped you with that challenge? That's kind of, I think, the big one.
Well, I think there's a difference between grit and stubbornness. So grit is just the perseverance to keep going against all odds, and stubbornness is refusing to take any outsider perspective and just plow through regardless. And I think that subtlety makes all the difference. I've seen quite a few stubborn founders go down with the ship and say, well, if I can't do it my way, then it's not going to happen at all.
That's a big one. I've seen that so many times. Yeah.
You can be right, but then you're still dead, and that's a small comfort, perhaps.
Well, it's an interesting problem. I mean, like you said, you see a lot of founders going down with the ship because they refuse to change their vision. They refuse to bow to maybe the thing that makes option A so compelling that everyone does it, right? So at the same time, they're not listening to their potential customers. And, traditional business theory tells you that that's bad. You have to give people what they want. And if what they want is the way things are, that's a bit of a challenge, right? If you have something new and different that could honestly make sense for people to adopt, but you encounter resistance, should you then be a bit more flexible and say, well, okay, maybe based on what people are saying, maybe I should present it in a different way, or sort of tune it in a different way so that it's a new idea, but it's not as it doesn't appear as innovative as maybe some conservative customers would perceive it. Is that, it's a challenge, right? Do you just muscle through your own vision, which entrepreneurs can do by the vestige of being entrepreneurs, or should you twist and turn with, what your customers are saying? And if they want the traditional thing, then you maybe water down your idea. How have you personally sort of balanced that kind of question?
Hard to say. I mean, I learned to be nimble and humble. So there are times when you'll get told that you're wrong, or that you're being too aggressive or pushing too hard. And sometimes you need to accept that, and sometimes you need to push back. It's impossible to be right 100% of the time there. But you just need to trust your gut. It's your best tool as an entrepreneur. I think what we've learned is the human condition is interesting, right? I can provide a tech solution that works extremely well for the industry as a whole that we're working in. But some people are reluctant to use new technology. They're scared of it. They barely know how to use a smartphone, and now we're asking them to use a complex web portal with different levels of input. And if I make that too complicated, no one's ever going to use it.
Definitely, yes. Complexity kills any product, at least perceived complexity from the point of view of the customer. Does it help then to break up your offering into, instead of having a big monolithic solution, you buy my system or something, you have sort of a way to get into it, which is very low commitment, low cost, just to kind of put your toe in the water, see how it performs, see if it works, see if it provides any benefit, and then you can gradually ramp up. You can buy more of the solution. Is that kind of a big part of it, making it granular like that?
So for us, it's small commitments first and see how it works. The other thing is just we've incorporated that into our user experience, right? So I'm always on my team, get rid of the complexity, right? What is the essential here? Can we make this only one page instead of two? The more you can provide that is shorter in length but longer in impact, the better off you'll be. So we've had that philosophy since day one, and trying to really distill ourselves down to the absolute fundamentals of our value proposition in the product that we're offering. So our report is depending on the building that we're testing, we're hopefully no more than 10 pages, where currently in the industry it's like 80 pages filled with Excel graphs that no one understands how to read. That's a big deal in industry where no one A, has time to read a report, and B, very few people have the technical knowledge to understand what is going on in that paper. Yeah,
that's you're absolutely right. From the perspective of customers, they have very low tolerance for complexity or anything. And I found that that's a recurring theme across a lot of entrepreneurs. They know the technical details of their product. And so to them, it's intuitive, it's simple, it makes perfect sense, it's easy to use. But when they get it in front of their customers, oftentimes that's not what the customers think. The customers find it confusing and unintuitive, and they don't understand how to do the most basic things with it. So I've seen a lot of startup founders learn that the hard way, especially technical startup founders that they know the ins and outs of their product, but what they don't understand is really that customer perspective. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I think maybe this is my second big takeaway, is focus on benefits and not features in your validation side. Mm-hmm. So I have learned to love the tech side of my business, and I get really, really excited about it. So I used to go into meetings and be like, and the algorithm, and here's how we're using machine learning, and here's all about our wireless transmission protocols, and isn't this wonderful and secure and great? And everyone just kind of stares back blankly, because it turns out that I'm the only one who cares.
Quick, tell me about the floating point variables.
Exactly. So now the way I try and think about it when I'm in a pitch meeting is to say, is to think about it as like, everything that we're doing is like a little magic black box done by wizards, and it doesn't matter what goes on in that black box. What matters is how it impacts you, and you get a lot more uptake in that sense. No one cares how refined your AI process is. As long as it works, no one will ever ask about it. So even if that's what excites you most, and even if that's what you want to talk about, understand your audience and understand that unless you're talking to another software dev or data analyst, it's probably not going to matter to them.
Yeah, that's a great point. You have to really speak to the types of people you're dealing with. And you could be dealing with technical types that would love to get into that, in which case it's great to be able to speak in their terms and get into the technical details. But a lot of other types of customers, the people you're going to be encountering, they're not going to be tech people necessarily that want to know all the ins and outs. They want you to bottom line it for them. And so you'd have to be able to speak in those terms also. So that's some great points. That's great. That's great to see. And I'd like to maybe in the future I'd like to be able to do a plug with you. I can't put the website up or anything like that, but if you want to say your website so everybody knows and they can go there.
Sure. It's ioAirFlow.com, and there's not much information on the website right now. We're just in the process of relaunching. So if anyone is interested more, you can always email me, Matt, M-A-T-T, at ioAirFlow.com, and I'm happy to get back to you as soon as I can.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks for joining me today. This is the very first live stream that I've ever done, and nothing crashed, nothing blew up, no hard drives failed. I didn't have to reinstall an operating system. So that's a step in the right direction. So I'm very happy that you were able to join me today. So this is great. So yeah, awesome. So thanks everyone for joining us in the chat. Thanks for the couple of questions we got there. And I'd like to try and make this a regular type thing, maybe a weekly stream or something like that. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more elegant and polished in the future. But if anyone has any feedback, please post it in the chat, and you can contact me through my regular YouTube channel, which is The Company's Expert. This is the secondary channel that this is the very first video for, so this is not really my main place. Go over and see The Company's Expert, and thanks for watching. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Bill.
Awesome. You take care.
You too. Bye.
Okay.